Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Hello everyone, welcome to SciTech Culture, the podcast where we discuss all things science, technology and culture. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve?
Hi Ben, I'm well. Hi everyone, I'm real.
And it's good to be real in this day and age when so much is fake or is claimed to be fake, or both. You really don't know which one's which. Just before we get into that, I just wanted to have a couple of little things. We're a little late getting on scheduled time because I had to wait for an eBay purchaser to pick up our couch that I sold. But it made me wonder, Steve, I'm thinking I don't have a couch here now. You might just out of the corner of the frame here and see that the armrest is missing from the frame here. But it made me think, maybe this is a way to, get your ass off the couch and not watch so much TV because there's nowhere to sit,
They've got standing desks maybe now for watching TV or whatever else it might be you do at home. You don't sit down with a laptop on your lap. You stand and put it on a bench.
Well, I mean, considering the younger generations watching it all through iDevices now, makes you wonder, but I'm still aiming for the home theater setup here after all, because I've on the quiet boycotted cinema for now, and I need to have it all ready. So looking forward to the new couch coming soon.
Oh, very good, and I can't wait to hear about how well it sets up for the home cinema.
Yeah, absolutely. And a side thing, also picked up I picked up a Bose QC25 headphones, the noise cancelling ones. Picked them up a bit cheaper on eBay, which was always a good thing. eBay reeled me in. They saw I was selling a couch, and they got me to start buying stuff again through an excellent use of a voucher that they offered me. But I was able to get it for I was able to get it for about 40% off, which is always good. But it's I'm kind of intrigued to see how they perform on a plane, because they do a really good job, I guess, just in here. Maybe if I get the full radio set up here in the apartment for the podcast, I'll just wear them, DJ style or whatever while we're doing these podcasts, and I'll be in the zone for the podcast.
Awesome.
All right, we'll go on to our fake news, fake media, fake everything topic, and I know there's a bit of a flavour to our episodes recently, with Trump featuring, and we'll mention him again today after that spectacular news conference that he had just the other day. But I know we also want to bring in a science angle on this as well, because the reason why I think that is because there were some issues that came up during the presidential campaign around science. Probably climate change being the obvious one, where it got hit by that fake news side of things, in the sense that it's either it's completely fake or whatever, and it's an interesting way to go. But I just wanted to start with that press conference, and it seemed like Trump had come back to campaign mode. Where it could be argued that that's where he feels comfortable, that combative sort of thing that he does, and that is his only way of being able to engage. He has to get into a fight with someone. I don't know. I thought it was extraordinary. I didn't obviously particularly think it was very presidential. There was a lot of talk in the media about how unpresidential it was, and they were getting stuck into him and all of that. Can we really put up with this for 4 years? I mean, I know it was kind of like a train wreck, and you're watching it and you're thinking you can't not watch it, but this is only 4 weeks in, and I don't know if I personally could handle any more of it.
Oh, look, I know where you're coming from, Ben. So by way of disclaimer, this is, a real opinion, but I'm not a political analyst. So you can take my opinion however you want to take it. I don't know what's going on. I think if you look at Trump, you're right. He's not a politician. He's not even trying politics. He's doing what he knows and he likes, which is business. So in his mind, there's a business decision, and it's either a good deal, a very, very good deal, or it's a very, very bad deal. And there's I've done a lot of deals and I know which is which, and there's no in between.
Yeah.
And so he's combative. He comes out and he says, right, I'm going to do this piece of legislation, and he goes ahead and does it. What I've found very interesting is he's used his first, I don't know how many days it is now, to put through a whole lot of legislation or sign a whole lot of presidential acts. I'm not quite sure how it works in the US.
I'd say I'd hazard a guess the legislation takes a lot longer than the 4 weeks he's been in.
He's done his presidential decrees. As I say, I'm not a political analyst, and I'm really not very expert on American things, but I've seen him signing. I've seen him signing all that paper. And, you know, I also heard him at that press conference. He listed and said he'd done all these things. And, you know, that's not a political kind of viewpoint traditionally. Traditionally, you know, they go out, they prepare for a debate, they have a plan, all that sort of stuff. He's just picked, I don't know how many things, 50, 60, 100 things. He's treated them as individual deals, which he's done. Yeah. And he's now able to say, see, I did this, 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 and this, and this. So we've never seen anything like this before in terms of politics. This guy's not doing politics. He's doing business.
He's doing something. He's doing something.
He's doing business as a president or something. I'm confused about that as well. And once again, I'm only a spectator. And, you know, apart from that, that's all I can say. The other weird side of it is there's such hostility against him. Yeah. And I don't think it's got anything to do with what he's doing, to be honest, even though some of his stuff is highly controversial and potentially certainly open to debate about whether or not it's a good way to act or not. And it's very personal. So,
but I'm actually wondering the why people are getting so fired up is that maybe he is doing these things, but he's creating, whether intentionally or not, distractions from it. So there were times in that press conference where, and the classic example was he had to go back and revisit I had such a big win during the election. And he unfortunately made that comment. It was the biggest electoral college victory since Reagan. And then immediately a reporter picked him up and said, oh, well, actually Obama got a bigger electoral victory than you twice. Bush got it. Bush won, the original one, had a 400 plus. You only had 305. And I thought the journalist then said something quite interesting. Well, he asked an interesting question in that he said, how is it that you can go out and say that everything we're saying is fake when you go out and say something that's factually false, and then we pick up on it and then you complain and say it's all fake media and fake news? And that is and I think that's the part that is getting people upset. I mean, it almost looks like he is doing nothing, because that's all and it's not just the media that's sort of flagging it as something to report on. He is actually instigating it as well.
Oh, look, yeah, although it's highly circular. I still haven't worked out if the errors that Trump makes when he quotes a figure or claims, makes a claim, I haven't worked out yet if he really just doesn't know what he's saying, and he just thinks that because he believes it must be so. Well,
it's the other one where he went out.
Whether he's doing it deliberately.
Yeah, well, it's like that one where he said the murder rate was the worst in 47 years when it was factually false and has been picked up numerous times as being factually false, but he still will go out and punch it out because that's what he believes, and then his 35% of the voter base cheers him on when he says it. And I think that's where, when we're looking at things like fake news, fake media, maybe you're right, it is a bit of a circular thing, but you do have, you've got a guy in the White House there that is instigating a lot of it. He's making that circle turn.
Oh, yeah, and he's turning it to his advantage. Let's make no mistake about that. He doesn't care whether he's right or wrong, because it's just more grist for the mill. and it's right too for the media to call him out when he's wrong.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any issue there. But what I, as a spectator, what I would actually like to see is the media actually do some investigation, not just call him up, but do some investigation. Has he got some person just saying, "Oh, Donald, yeah, this is, the highest murder rate or whatever, or we're the most successful or whatever," and he just hears it over breakfast or over a cup of coffee with his advisors, and he just takes that on board and then just says it, and then and this is the whole this is the essence of fake news. Is he deliberately and quite calculatedly putting these things out, knowing there's a dog whistle to the media? And because what I think the media hasn't quite got its head around is, in the old world, if a politician came out and said stuff like Trump is, and it's factually wrong, and they called out that politician, they can bring him down. Yeah. And that was always traditionally the role of the media, to keep that level of honesty, to keep that level of check in the system. This is no different to the Trump campaign or the Democrats versus Trump. You can hate the guy all you want. You can call him out all you want, but the guy just eats it. He's like, a Godzilla or something. He's stronger for it.
Yeah.
If you want to really catch him out because you believe he's doing something that's not right, you're going to have to rethink about how you do it.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, I think. There's been a lot of noise made about the Russia connections in recently, particularly with Flynn resigning, of course, in quotation marks, what Trump knew, etc. And if for whatever reason, if that starts to gain momentum, that could make things interesting. But we'll have to see how it plays out.
But once again, will you see how it plays out if everybody's screaming about the fact that he misquoted some statistic? And he uses that as a distraction, if he is using it as a distraction. And
there's no evidence of that, by the way. It almost looks... It's almost like you could look at it and go, it's deliberate. There's a ploy going on. But on the other side, you could also equally look at it and go, they got no idea what's going on. They're just making stuff up. It's all amateur hour, and they've got no idea what they're doing.
Well, I think the most amazing thing about this whole situation is the fact that there's all this hubris around, the argument. Fake news, not fake news, truth, untruth, post-truth. The only place where you can really tell very clearly what Trump is about is through Twitter.
Yeah.
Because in 140 characters, he says something. And those statements are probably the only ones that don't change, interestingly, because it's logged on Twitter.
Well, that's true. But then, like his tweet after the press conference that was the best press conference ever. And it's that reinforcing delusion. So it's almost entertaining if it wasn't serious, I guess. I mean, the process of government is tedious compared to campaigning. Campaigning's kind of fun, really. It's kind of like rock star type stuff where you show up, you yell a bit, and people are cheering you on, and doing all that stuff. But when you're actually in government, you're having to get stuff done. It's just really, frustration and tedium and just crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's. And I just don't think that suits him.
No, but as he would say, I'm getting a lot of stuff done. I know what a lot of stuff is, and I've got a lot of stuff done. No other president has got as much stuff done as I have already, which I think is what he said. Yeah,
exactly. I just want to touch on fake news as it pertains to science. There was an article that I came across when it comes up from the American Council on Science and Health, and just recent. It was 31st of January where it was posted. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Steve, given your obviously interest in science and whatnot, is that climate change is an obvious one to pick on in terms of how it's reported, how it comes across in the media, how people understand it or don't understand it, because it's quite a complicated sort of thing to explain in a way that can get the seriousness of its message across. This particular article goes through how to detect a fake science news story, because fake news can be used to try and debunk science as well. I can imagine there's a lot of climate change deniers that would utilize these things to try and convince people of the fact that climate change is a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese and whatnot. I mean, like, just some of these things. One that I thought was interesting is like, if you're reading one of these articles and it's very similar to a press release on which it's based. Yes. That's interesting, and that could probably tie in a bit with what, say, a government might propose, or a politician might put out there that's wanting to influence people. If it doesn't, actually express its methodology, use the appropriate technical terms, actually have the quotable evidence attached to it. I don't know. This article goes through 10 different things here, but I'm starting to think, isn't that just a common sense approach? You're looking for things that make sense, things that are logical and are backed up.
But this is where this is very tricky stuff. And whether it's fake news about politicians or fake news about a particular social issue, it's always exactly the same. And you've hit on it there. Of course, you want to, whatever you're reading, you look into logically. Most people do, and they look for reason.
Yeah,
and
But could it be that the fake news stories that go out are just so well done that it is reason to people, and that's where it's dangerous?
So imagine you have no knowledge about a particular issue, but there's something very reasoned, very logical. And my own personal test is the infomercial test, because a really good infomercial can convince you that you need a Sabako pillow, or to get a good night's sleep, or that you really do need the Chuck Norris Total Gym 2000. Now, if you watch those, you'll probably never buy them. But if you watch them, those infomercials are done so well that you actually will think at the end, gee, that's actually a pretty good product. I believe in that. Look, Chuck Norris uses it. A stuntman uses the Sabako pillow, etc., etc. And you've got no basis. If you actually think about it, there's no basis other than what you've seen in the infomercial to suggest that that's the truth. And that's how fake news works. It's highly scripted, highly convincing, and it's too even. It's actually too even. So if you ever really want to check something, ask yourself at the end of it, did it prove a point? And if it proved it absolutely conclusively, but doesn't really talk about anything other than the issue, if it doesn't go wider and bring in information from wider sources, and if you find it very convincing and very extremely logical, chances are that it's probably fake. If you look at some of the fake news stuff that went around, they're classic. So you can watch some of the fake news stuff which you know to be fake. And if you put aside your emotion, or just sit down and listen to it, it all makes so much sense. Whether it's, ballot boxes that have been locked in storage somewhere. I mean, of course that would happen. That's exactly how it would happen. It didn't happen. But it's completely plausible. In fact, it's so plausible and presented so convincingly that, unless you really have a wider grasp of the subject, how could you know? And I think that's the trick, and that's what's employed. You pull in big names, you pull in all sorts of things that people know and identify with, and create a really compelling argument. And
so I guess that's how, like in the presidential campaign, that whole fake news thing around Clinton being, committing crimes stemmed from someone must have done the numbers and worked out that people were already suspicious of her. A big chunk of the electorate was suspicious of her anyway, for whatever reason, and they just tailored it to not only hit their suspicions but to amplify them.
And that's why fake news works, because deep down people want to believe it. So thankfully, although you'd wish it would work better, but there's still a lot of people who believe we haven't been to the moon.
Yeah.
But most reasonable people know we have.
Yeah.
Know we have. Don't believe we have. Know we have.
Yeah.
Okay. But for those that really want to believe that there's some sort of conspiracy, whether it's chemtrails or whatever else, all you need to do is hit those trigger points and you'll believe in chemtrails, you believe they're putting stuff in our water, you'll believe they never went to the moon, you believe aliens run the White House secretly, all that sort of stuff, all day long.
Yeah.
For the rest of us who are more reasonable, though, we all have personal beliefs and we're emotionally very susceptible to accepting patterns or pattern recognition, and we're also very susceptible to converting that pattern recognition to our particular personal views. So that's where fake news sits. Fake news sits in that sort of world of imagination we all have that allow us to kind of believe in Harry Potter, even though we know Harry Potter isn't real, but everyone kind of has a Harry Potter fantasy or a Hobbit fantasy, or a Star Wars fantasy. We know it's not real, but we want to believe, and that's why we go to the movies and we love those films. Fake news is exactly the same thing, except it's playing with your emotions on stories that are actually very important for us socially and culturally. But, combating it is very, very difficult.
Well, I don't know, Steve. I think just as a final thought that this is potentially going to be a very exhausting environment to have to sit through if you really want to follow it. I've been tempted to just switch the whole thing off, but then might argue that you're not participating in democracy or something like that if you don't stay aware of what's happening with this sort of stuff, because I actually think it's a bit of a test of how we do things, how we interact with each other. Maybe Trump in the long run might be some sort of weird roundabout way of testing the very pillar of how the whole thing works, by putting something in there that's, as Michael Moore would say, the Molotov cocktail thrown into the mix, blow it all up, and then see if it can still stand.
That's absolutely true. I think that might be correct. And the only thing I would hope for is that we as a society are better for whatever experience this delivers. But
don't you usually learn more through a bad experience rather than a good one?
That's what I mean. No pain, no gain. And I think that could be where we are. I mean, I certainly think that more generally, people have to be more conscious and just rising up against a particular system of belief that isn't appropriate or you don't agree with isn't enough. You need to be reasoned, and I think you really need to, look more at us as a culture, as a society, and think about putting people first rather than, messages and power.
Yeah.
But that's very hard in our society. So we'll see how it goes from here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks again, Steve, for that, and we'll keep on going. I have a feeling we might touch on this on a continual basis because it's very unusual, a very unusual sort of thing that's happening at the moment, and it's good to follow it to see where it goes, because it's hard to see where it's going to go at this point.
Absolutely there. And I think, this could be the sort of thing where we see a real bite from our digital technologies finally in terms of communication and how it plays out in our society.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so don't forget our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can interact with us on Twitter, Facebook, Google+. Love to hear from you. You can see all of our photography, etc. on Instagram. Not Flickr anymore, of course. And if you have anyone that's interested in these ongoing discussions that Steve and I have on a regular basis, send them to scitechculture.com, get them to subscribe, check out the videos, etc., audio files, all of that sort of thing, and we'd greatly appreciate that. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.